This is what we do. The transmission ended. On the bridge, the crew by the medical bay of the Eternal Horizon was chaos. Dr. Rena Park moved between beds, treating wounded Marines and crew. Burns from plasma weapons, broken bones from impact trauma, cuts from shrapnel, all injuries that would kill most alien species but humans could survive with proper care. Another one coming in, a nurse called out. They brought in Private Minho on a stretcher. His armor was cracked and his left arm was badly burned. He was conscious and trying not to scream. Hold still, Rena said, injecting him with painkillers. You're going to be fine. The burn is second degree. We'll have you back on duty in a week. Minho nodded through gritted teeth. Rena moved to the next patient. There were so many wounded. The battle had been won, but victory always had a cost. In another section of the ship, a different kind of work was happening. The bodies of the dead were being prepared for space burial. Humans who had crossed the stars to save strangers and never made it home. Each one was wrapped in their national flag and placed in a torpedo tube for launch into space. Captain Tay attended the ceremony. All the surviving crew lined the corridor as the bodies were loaded. Tay stood at attention, his hand raised in salute as each torpedo was fired into the void. The dead would drift among the stars forever, a permanent memorial to their sacrifice. After the ceremony, Tay returned to his quarters and allowed himself a moment of grief. He had lost good people today, friends, heroes. But there was no time to mourn properly. War didn't stop for feelings. A message came through on his personal terminal. It was from Lieutenant Sang Hyun in intelligence. Captain, I need to show you something. It's urgent. Tay met Sang in the secure briefing room. The intelligence officer looked worried, which was unusual. Sang had seen combat in the Mars Rebellion. Not much scared him anymore. We recovered data from the destroyed Krithak ships, Sang began. Specifically, their navigation computers and communication logs. He brought up a holographic display. It showed star charts with Krithak fleet movements marked in red. What we fought today was designated Forward Scouting Force 7. They were not the main Krithak fleet. They were just scouts. Tay felt his blood run cold. Scouts? 3,000 ships were just scouts? Yes, sir. The data shows the main Krithak Hive Armada is in deep space, about 3 months away from Coalition territory. Current estimates put their strength at over 50,000 ships. 50,000. The number was staggering. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet had barely defeated 3,000, and they had taken significant losses doing it. The Coalition needs to know about this, Tay said. I've already sent the data to Fleet Command. Admiral Bayek is reviewing it now. On her flagship, Admiral Hana Bayek stared at the intelligence report with a mixture of anger and determination. 50,000 ships. The Krithak weren't just raiders. They were an existential threat to the entire galaxy. She opened a channel to Earth Fleet Command. This is Admiral Beck. I need to speak with the Defense Council immediately. Minutes later, she was connected to a room full of Earth's military and civilian leaders. She presented the intelligence quickly and clearly. The Krithak main fleet will reach Coalition space in 3 months, she concluded. If they attack in full force, they will overwhelm every species in the galaxy. The Coalition cannot stop them. They don't have the military capacity. One of the council members, an old general with gray hair, asked the obvious question. Can we stop them? Hana considered carefully. Not alone. We would need 10 times our current fleet strength, maybe more. We need allies. We need the Coalition species to actually fight for once. They won't, another council member said. They're pacifists. They don't have the culture for war. Then we change their culture, Hana said firmly. We show them how to fight. We give them weapons. We train their people, and we lead them into battle. Because if the Krithak are not stopped, Earth will eventually be next. The council deliberated. It was a massive commitment. Resources, ships, personnel. But in the end, the decision was clear. Earth would defend the galaxy, even if the galaxy didn't want to defend itself. You have authorization to proceed, Admiral, the Defense Council chair said. Build your coalition. Prepare for war. On Luminos Prime, Elder Sylvanex stood before the Planetary Council explaining what humanity had done. The other Valerian elders listened in silence, their crystalline bodies reflecting the chamber's light. They saved us, Sylvanex concluded. But more than that, they showed us something we had forgotten, that sometimes survival requires violence, that peace exists only because someone is willing to fight for it. One of the elders, a conservative named Crystallix, spoke up. But they are so aggressive, so brutal. Can we trust them? They had every reason to ignore our distress call, Sylvanix replied. We are nothing to them. Strangers on the other side of the galaxy. But they came anyway. They lost over 1,000 of their people saving ours. If that is not trustworthy, I do not know what is. The Council voted. Luminos Prime would support Earth's coalition. They would share their technology, their resources, their knowledge. It was the least they could do. Similar scenes played out across the coalition. News of the Battle of Luminos Prime spread like wildfire. The impossible victory. The humans who charged 3,000 ships with 67 and won. The Deathworlders who showed the galaxy that predators could be stopped. Ambassador Nara Cheon, Earth's representative to the Galactic Coalition, stood before the Coalition Council. The same council that had refused to help the Valerians. Now they looked at her with a mixture of awe and fear. The Krithak main fleet is coming, Nara said simply. In 3 months they will attack. They will kill billions. They will destroy your worlds one by one. The Coalition has a choice to make. You can debate and negotiate and hope for the best. Or you can fight. Ambassador Quilnax, the six-armed diplomat who had warned humanity not to intervene, spoke carefully. What you ask is difficult. Our species are not warriors. We do not have weapons like yours. We cannot fight like you do. Then we will teach you, Nara replied. Earth will share our military technology. We will train your people. We will show you how to build ships that can survive combat. But you must be willing to actually fight. No more sitting in safe stations while others die. No more calculating acceptable losses. If you want to survive, you must be willing to defend yourselves. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species refused, too afraid or too pacifist to consider warfare. But others remembered the Valerians, how close they came to extinction. And they realized that saying no to Earth might mean saying yes to death. 6 species agreed to join the coalition. The Valerians, who owed humanity their lives. The Torgani, a large species with strong industrial capacity. The Milnari, fast and agile, perfect for scouting. The Quellan, experts in logistics. The Baviks, masters of defensive technology. And the Hirani, who had stealth capabilities Earth lacked. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Over the next weeks, the coalition fleet began to form. Human engineers worked with alien counterparts, upgrading their ships with human weapons and armor. Human marines trained alien soldiers in ground combat. Human tacticians taught alien captains how to fight aggressively instead of defensively. It was difficult work. Many aliens couldn't handle the physical stress of human combat techniques. Their ships struggled with the power requirements of human weapons. But slowly, gradually, they learned. Commander Yuna Choi found herself training a battalion of Torgani soldiers. The Torgani were big, almost as tall as humans, with thick skin like elephant hide. They were strong but gentle, evolved on a paradise world where conflict was rare. Again, Yuna shouted as the Torgani practiced rifle drills. They were clumsy, slow, but improving. Remember, this weapon is designed to kill. Treat it with respect. When you aim it at something, you are choosing to destroy that thing. Make sure it deserves to be destroyed. One of the Torgani soldiers, a young male named Bravok, approached her after training. Commander Choi, may I ask a question? Go ahead. How do humans live with this? The violence. The killing. Does it not disturb you? Yuna considered the question. Every human child learns about Earth's history. The wars, the genocides, the terrible things we did to each other. It disturbs us greatly. But we also learned that pretending violence doesn't exist won't make it go away. Evil exists in the universe. Sometimes the only way to stop it is to be better at violence than it is. Bravok nodded slowly. The Krithak are evil. Yes, and in 3 months we're going to their home space. We're going to end them before they can hurt anyone else. Are you ready for that? I am, Bravok said, his voice firm. On Earth, shipyards worked around the clock. New ships were being built. Older ships were being retrofitted. Humanity was preparing for the largest military operation in its history. Admiral Hannah Baik watched the preparations from her office. Soon she would lead a fleet of over 300 ships, human and alien, working together. It was unprecedented, dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it was necessary. The Krithak had to be stopped. And humanity, the Deathworlders from Earth, would make sure of it. She opened a recording and began to speak. This message would be broadcast to every ship in the fleet, human and alien alike. In 3 months, we launched the largest military operation the galaxy high. The space battle had turned into a hunt. What remained of the Krythak swarm scattered across the system, trying desperately to escape. But human ships were faster, more determined, and completely merciless. Commander Yuna Choi stood in the launch bay of the Iron Phoenix, watching her Marines load into boarding pods. Each pod was essentially an armored coffin with rocket engines. The plan was simple and insane. Fire the pods like missiles at enemy ships, punch through the hull, and fight inside. "Listen up," Yuna called out. Her voice echoed through the bay. "Intelligence reports that Krythak hive ships have warrior drones inside. These things are 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor, with claws that can cut through steel. They've killed every boarding party they've ever faced." The Marines stood silently in their powered armor, waiting. "But here's what the Krythak don't know," Yuna continued. "Every boarding party they've faced came from peaceful species. Scientists and explorers playing soldier. You are actual soldiers. Earth made you hard, your training made you deadly, and your equipment was designed to kill things worse than giant bugs." Private Minho checked his rifle one last time. The weapon felt heavy and reassuring in his hands. Next to him, Corporal Sora loaded armor-piercing rounds into her machine gun. Around them, 40 more Marines prepared their weapons. "Our target is Hive Ship 73, Yuna said. "The ship is trying to flee the system. We're going to board it, fight through to the reactor core, and destroy it from the inside." "Any questions?" Silence. Marines didn't ask questions when the mission was clear. "Good, load up." The Marines climbed into their pods. Each pod held 4 soldiers packed tight against each other. The doors sealed with a hiss. Inside, Minho could hear his own breathing and the beating of his heart. 30 seconds to launch, the pilot's voice said through the comm system. Minho had trained for this. But training and reality were different things. He was about to be fired like a bullet at an alien warship. If the pod's aim was off by a few meters, they would miss and drift into space forever. If the pod didn't punch through the hull, they would be crushed on impact. 10 seconds. But Minho didn't think about failure. Humans from Earth didn't have that luxury. You did the job or you died trying. Those were the only options. Launch. The pod's rockets fired. Acceleration slammed Minho back into his seat with crushing force. The pod shot across space, one of dozens launched from the Iron Phoenix. Through the tiny window, Minho saw the Krythak hive ship growing larger, closer, filling his vision. Impact. The pod hit the hive ship's hull at incredible speed. The armored nose punched through bioarmor, creating a hole just large enough. Emergency systems sealed the breach behind them. The pod's door blew open. "Move, move, move!" Yuna shouted. The Marines poured out of the pod into the organic corridors of the hive ship. The walls were made of something that looked like bone and chitin. Everything was dark, lit by dim bioluminescent patches. The air smelled like rot and chemicals. "Contact front," someone yelled. Krythak warrior drones charged down the corridor. They were massive, each one bigger than a human in armor. Their bodies were covered in black carapace, their claws gleamed in the dim light. They made clicking sounds as they ran, a noise that would freeze most species with primal fear. The Marines opened fire. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Rifles, machine guns, and shotguns all firing at once. Armor-piercing rounds designed to kill Earth's megafauna tore through Krythak carapace like it was cardboard. The first wave of warrior drones died before they crossed half the distance. They fell in pieces, their natural armor useless against human weapons. "Advance," Yuna commanded. The Marines moved forward in practiced formation. When more warrior drones appeared, they died just as quickly. The Krythak had evolved to be perfect predators in their dark world. But they had never faced something that evolved on an even deadlier world. On the eternal horizon, Captain Tay coordinated the overall battle. His tactical display showed the Marine boarding actions across multiple hive ships. Every indicator showed success. The Krythak simply had no answer to human close-quarters combat. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the Krythak fleet. They're requesting negotiation." "After trying to kill us?" Tay asked coldly. "Put it through." A Krythak officer appeared on the screen, its translator converting its clicks into human language. "Cease your attack. We will withdraw from this system. There is no need for further combat." Tay stared at the alien for a long moment. "You came here to exterminate an entire civilization. You were going to kill every Valerian on that planet, and now that someone is fighting back, you want to negotiate. That is the nature of conflict. We took what we could. You stopped us. Now we leave. This is how wars end. Not human wars, Tay said quietly. When humans fight, we fight until one side cannot fight anymore. You attacked the innocent. You murdered civilians. You tried to commit genocide. And now you're going to learn what happens when humans declare war. He cut the transmission and opened the fleet channel. All ships, new orders. Hunt down every Krithak vessel in this system. No survivors, no mercy. These things wanted to exterminate the Valerians. We're going to show them what real extermination looks like. The human fleet redoubled its attacks. Railguns fired continuously. Missiles streaked through space in swarms. Any Krithak ship that tried to surrender was destroyed anyway. Humans had learned long ago that some enemies didn't deserve mercy. Inside Hive Ship 73, Yuna's Marines reached the reactor core. The chamber was massive, organic walls pulsing with bioluminescent energy. The reactor itself looked like a giant heart, pumping power through the ship. Set the charges, Yuna ordered. The demolition specialist, Sergeant Hayuk, placed explosive devices around the reactor, heavy charges designed to breach fortified bunkers on Earth. More than enough to destroy an organic reactor. Charges set. Timer at 5 minutes. All Marines fall back to the extraction point. The team ran through the corridors, the timer counting down in their helmets. Behind them, warrior drones gave chase, but the Marines' rear guard cut them down. They reached the boarding pods just as the timer hit 30 seconds. The pods launched, rocketing away from the hive ship. Yuna watched through her pod's window as the timer reached 0. The hive ship exploded from the inside out. The reactor overload tore through the organic structure, ripping the massive vessel apart. Fire and debris expanded in all directions, and then the void of space snuffed out the flames, leaving only twisted wreckage. Across the system, the scene repeated. Human Marines boarded, fought through, destroyed reactors, and extracted. Hive ship after hive ship died from internal explosions. The Krithak swarm, which had numbered 3,000 ships at the start of the battle, was down to less than 500. And those 500 were running as fast as their engines could push them. Commander Woo Gi-hyun's destroyer squadron caught a group of fleeing Krithak ships near the system's edge. His damaged shields had been repaired, his armor patched. The Red Dawn was scarred but still deadly. "Sir, they're broadcasting surrender requests," his comm officer reported. Wu thought about the Valerian civilians the Krithak had killed, the cities they had destroyed, the children who would never grow up because of these monsters. "Ignore the transmission," he said. "Fire all weapons." The destroyers opened fire. The fleeing Krithak ships tried to dodge, but human targeting computers were too accurate. One by one, they died. 8 hours after the battle began, it was over. The Krithak swarm was annihilated. 3,000 ships reduced to 0. Not a single vessel escaped. The cost to humanity was significant but acceptable. 7 ships severely damaged, 2 destroyers lost with all hands. The destroyers Guardian and Defiant went down fighting, taking dozens of enemy ships with them. 1,247 human casualties. On the eternal horizon, Captain Tay stood at the viewport and looked at the debris field. Thousands of wrecked ships drifted in space, the remains of a swarm that had terrorized the galaxy for decades. "Send a message to Luminous Prime," he said quietly. "Tell them they're safe now. The Krithak are gone." Below on the planet, Elder Sylvanex received the message. Around him, the Valerians emerged from their shelters, looking up at a sky no longer filled with enemy ships. They had been saved by creatures they had never met, warriors from a world they couldn't imagine. Sylvanex opened a channel to the human fleet. "Captain Tay Dehan," he said, his crystalline voice chiming with emotion. "You saved us. We are forever in your debt." Tay's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but satisfied. "We just did what was right, Elder. Someone sent a distress call. We answered it. But your capacity for violence," Sylvanex said carefully. "We have never seen such warfare. What kind of species are you?" Tay considered the question. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight back. We learned to survive no matter the odds. We're not proud of our violence, Elder. But we will never apologize for protecting those who cannot protect themselves." He paused, looking at something off-screen. "We need to perform search and rescue operations for our lost crews. With your permission, we'll establish a temporary base in orbit." "Of course," Sylvanex said. "Anything you need." "You are heroes," Tay shook his head. "We're not heroes. We're just humans." Hive Commander Vrexnil watched the destruction of another Valerian transport ship with satisfaction. His massive body, covered in black chitin armor, clicked with pleasure. The crystalline beings inside the transport shattered beautifully as the bioplasma tore through their hull. Vrexnil had led the Krithak swarm for 30 cycles. He had consumed 47 civilizations. The Valerians would be 48. After them, the swarm would move to the next system, then the next, then the next. The galaxy was an endless feast. The Krithak evolved in darkness on a rogue planet that traveled between stars. They learned to take what they needed by force. When they discovered space travel, they found thousands of weak species, all ripe for consumption. None of them could stop the swarm. Commander, one of his officers clicked in their language. The planet's defenses are broken. We can begin the harvest? Excellent, Vrexnil responded. Send the consumption vessels. Strip everything. Biomass, minerals, water. Leave nothing. Below, on Luminos Prime, Elder Sylvanex received the news. The orbital platforms were gone. The evacuation ships were destroyed. In 6 hours, the Krithak landing forces would arrive. After that extinction, he had received no response to his distress call. The galaxy had abandoned them. The Valerians gathered in their shelters and prepared to die with dignity. Then the sensors detected something impossible. Elder, the sensor technician said, his crystalline voice trembling. New contacts. Multiple vessels entering the system. Sylvanex felt hope flicker, then die. The Krithak reinforcements? No, Elder, unknown signatures. The configuration is wrong. These ships are massive, dense, moving very fast. On his flagship, Vrexnil received the same report. Unknown vessels approaching from the edge of the system. His tactical display showed 67 contacts, tiny compared to his 3,000 ships. Probably more coalition evacuees, he decided. Position the swarm to intercept. Kill them quickly. The Krithak fleet moved like a living thing, thousands of bioships adjusting their positions. They had done this countless times. The pattern never changed. Unknown ships would see the swarm, panic, and run. The swarm would chase them down and tear them apart. But these ships didn't run. They accelerated forward. On the eternal horizon, Captain Tay watched the enemy fleet on his tactical display. The Krithak ships looked organic, like giant insects floating in space. They moved in swarm patterns, no clear formation. Thousands of contacts all moving to surround the human fleet. Sir, his tactical officer said, they're trying to box us in. Let them try, Tay replied. Communications, open a channel to the Krithak fleet. All frequencies, the channel opened. Tay spoke clearly, and the ship's computer translated his words into the Krithak language. Unknown hostile force, you are attacking a civilization under coalition protection. Cease your assault immediately and withdraw, or we will engage. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Krithak response came, not in words but in weapons fire. Bioplasma streaked across space toward the eternal horizon. The plasma hit the ship's shields and splashed away harmlessly. Human shields were designed to absorb punishment that would vaporize coalition vessels. A few plasma shots were nothing. Tay's expression didn't change. He had expected this. Violence was the only language some species understood. All ships, he said calmly into the fleet channel. Weapons free. Show them why Earth is a death world. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet responded instantly. 67 ships all opening fire at once. Railguns fired first. Solid tungsten slugs, each weighing several tons, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The physics were simple and brutal. Mass times velocity equals devastation. The slugs crossed the distance in seconds. The Krithak shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against solid projectiles. The first salvo hit 30 Krithak ships. The tungsten slugs punched through bio-armor like bullets through paper. Each impact released energy equivalent to a nuclear explosion. 30 Krithak ships simply came apart, torn into pieces by kinetic force. Vrexnil watched in shock as his ships died. Impossible. The Coalition didn't use such primitive, brutal weapons. What kind of species was this? All ships, attack formation, he commanded. Swarm the enemy. Overwhelm them. The Krithak fleet surged forward. This was their standard tactic. Surround the enemy, hit them from all sides, wear them down through superior numbers. It always worked. The human fleet didn't slow down. If anything, they accelerated faster, charging straight into the Krithak formation like predators running down prey. They're insane, Vrexnil's tactical officer clicked. They're charging 3,000 ships with 67. But Vrexnil was beginning to understand. These weren't coalition ships. Coalition vessels were elegant and fragile. These ships were brutal and strong. They came from a different kind of civilization. Commander Wu Gi-hyun led his destroyer squadron, Red Dawn and her sister ships, straight into the thickest part of the Krythak formation. Bioplasma fire hammered his shields from all directions. Warning alarms blared on the bridge. Shields at 70%, his tactical officer reported. "Keep going," Wu ordered. "All weapons fire at will." The Red Dawn's guns spoke. Railguns, missile launchers, energy cannons, all firing simultaneously. Krythak ships exploded around them. But more came, always more, trying to surround the human destroyers. A massive bioplasma blast hit the Red Dawn directly. The shields flickered and failed. The outer hull armor took the hit, buckling under the heat. Alarms screamed as 3 compartments breached. "Seal those sections," Wu commanded. "Damage control teams, move!" On a coalition ship, that hit would have been fatal. But human ships had triple redundant armor. The crew activated emergency bulkheads, sealing off the damaged areas. The Red Dawn kept fighting. "This is what we're built for," Wu muttered. "Take the hit, keep moving, kill the enemy." The Krythak tried their next tactic. They released their fighter organisms, thousands of living creatures bred for space combat. Each one was 3 meters long, covered in armor, with bioplasma weapons growing from their bodies. The fighter organisms swarmed toward the human fleet like angry hornets. There were so many that they blotted out the stars. Then the human point defense systems activated. Every human ship carried dozens of automated turrets. Rapid-fire kinetic weapons designed to shoot down missiles and small craft. The targeting computers locked onto thousands of targets simultaneously. The turrets opened fire. Streams of bullets filled space, creating a deadly wall of metal. The fighter organisms flew straight into it. It was a slaughter. The fighters had natural armor, but it meant nothing against high-velocity bullets. They died by the hundreds, then thousands, their frozen bodies drifting in space. Vrexnil watched his fighters die and felt something he hadn't experienced in 30 cycles. Fear. These humans were killing his swarm like it was nothing. Their weapons were too powerful, their armor too strong, their tactics too aggressive. "Fall back," he ordered. The swarm must retreat and regroup. But the human fleet gave them no chance. Admiral Hanabek saw the Krythak formation breaking apart and pressed the advantage. "All ships, pursuit formation," she commanded. "Don't let them scatter." The human ships accelerated again, chasing down the fleeing Krythak vessels. Railguns fired continuously, each shot killing another enemy ship. Missiles streaked through space, tracking their targets with ruthless efficiency. On Luminos Prime, Elder Sylvanex watched the battle through his sensors, unable to believe what he was seeing. The humans were destroying the Krythak swarm. The unstoppable force that had killed so many civilizations was running away from these newcomers. "Who are they?" he whispered. His sensor technician checked the data. According to Coalition records, they call themselves humans. Their homeworld is designated Earth. It's classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. Deathworld. Sylvanex had never heard the term. A planet so hostile that merely surviving on it requires extreme adaptation. The humans evolved under crushing gravity, in violent weather, surrounded by deadly predators. Their entire evolution was shaped by constant threat. Sylvanex understood now. The Krythak were predators, but they had just encountered apex predators. The humans didn't fight like civilized species. They fought like the warriors of a world that had tried to kill them every day of their existence. In space, the battle continued. The Krythak swarm was in full retreat now, but the human fleet showed no mercy. Every ship that tried to flee was hunted down and destroyed. Captain Tay watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "Target their command ship," he ordered. "The big one in the center. Take it down." The Eternal Horizon's main guns locked onto Vrexnil's flagship. 3 railgun slugs fired in rapid succession. The first broke through the shields. The second punched through the hull. The third struck the ship's reactor. Vrexnil had time for one final thought before his ship exploded. The Krythak had dominated the galaxy because no one could stop them, but they had never met anyone from Earth before. The flagship vanished in a ball of fire, and with it died the Krythak's confidence. The rest of the swarm broke completely, ships scattering in all directions. The human fleet gave chase, and the stars burned with the light of dying ships. The fleet traveled through the strange realm of faster-than-light space, where normal rules didn't apply. Inside the ships, the crews prepared for war. But this preparation looked nothing like what other species would recognize. On the assault, carrier Iron Phoenix Commander Yuna Choi walked through the Marine barracks. Her soldiers were checking their equipment, but the equipment itself would horrify most alien species. The powered armor stood in rows, each suit weighing 400 pounds. Most coalition species couldn't even lift a piece of human armor, let alone wear it and fight in it. Yuna stopped beside Private Minho, a young Marine who was loading magazines for his rifle. Each bullet was a solid tungsten core wrapped in copper. Simple technology, but devastating. The rifle would fire these bullets at supersonic speeds, punching through walls, armor, and flesh with equal ease. First combat deployment? Yuna asked. Minho nodded. Yes, Commander. I'm ready. Yuna smiled slightly. She remembered her first combat mission during the Titan Station incident. Fear is normal, she said. But remember your training. We've survived worse than aliens. We survived Earth. It was true. Every human grew up on a world that tried to kill them, gravity that was crushing by galactic standards, weather that could freeze or boil a person in hours, animals that saw humans as food, diseases that evolved as fast as medicine could fight them. Other species came from paradise worlds, stable climates, gentle gravity, no predators. They evolved intelligence because they had time to think, to build, to create art. Humans evolved intelligence because they needed every advantage just to survive another day. Yuna continued her inspection, satisfied that her Marines were ready. They would need to be. She had read the briefing files about the Krithak. The insectoid species was physically powerful, with natural armor and weapons. But Yuna wasn't worried. Humans had hunted creatures far more dangerous on their own world. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Jay Huang reviewed the fleet specifications with his team. The numbers would seem insane to coalition engineers. Our reactors are running at 90% capacity, Jay explained to his junior officers. Coalition ships typically run at 40%. They think higher output is too dangerous. One of the younger engineers, Ensign Mireille, looked nervous. Is it dangerous, sir? Jay shrugged. Everything about our ships is dangerous by their standards. Our engines push too much thrust. Our shields draw too much power. Our weapons create too much heat. But coalition ships are built for safety and efficiency. Our ships are built to win fights. He pulled up a schematic of a typical coalition cruiser. It was elegant, curved, beautiful. Then he showed them a human destroyer. It was angular, heavily armored, bristling with weapons. No elegance. Pure function. See these layers? Jay pointed to the destroyer's hull. Triple redundant armor. If the outer hull breaks, 2 more layers protect the crew. Coalition ships have one hull because they never expect to take damage. We expect to get hit, and we build ships that can keep fighting afterward. The engineering team nodded in understanding. Earth had taught humanity that survival meant preparation for the worst. In space, that meant ships that could absorb incredible punishment and still complete their mission. On the bridge of the Eternal Horizon, Ensign Bora Kim studied reports about the Coalition's reaction to humanity's deployment. The young xenopsychology officer found the alien responses fascinating and disturbing. Captain, she said to Tay, I'm reading the Coalition's military assessments of our fleet. They're terrified of us. Tay raised an eyebrow. We're going to save one of their colonies. I know, sir, but they see our weapons specifications and they think we're monsters. Our smallest shipboard gun has more firepower than their main battleship cannons. Our Marines carry personal weapons that could destroy armored vehicles. They literally cannot understand why we would build such things. Tay considered this. What do their weapons look like? Bora pulled up files. Most coalition species use energy weapons designed to disable ships, not destroy them. The idea of using solid projectiles at high speed seems primitive and excessive to them. And their Marines. She paused. They don't really have Marines, sir. They have security officers. When coalition ships board each other, it's more like law enforcement than combat. They've never had real wars, Tay realized. Not like we have, Bora agreed. The coalition has conflicts, but they're usually resolved through negotiation. When they do fight, it's limited and restrained. The concept of total war, of fighting until one side is completely defeated, is alien to them. They think we're violent barbarians. Tay looked out at the stars streaming past. Maybe we are, he said quietly. But sometimes the galaxy needs barbarians. Sometimes the only answer to violence is greater violence. In her ready room, Admiral Hanabak met with her senior staff through video link. All the ship captains appeared on her screen, their faces serious. Let's talk honestly, Hana began. We're about to engage an enemy we know nothing about. The coalition thinks we're going to die. They might be right. But I need to know that every one of you is ready for this. Captain Tay spoke first. Admiral, my crew is ready. We signed up to protect humanity. Today we're protecting someone else's humanity. That's what we do. The other captains echoed agreement. Captain Do-hyun of the destroyer Red Dawn, Captain Salmon of the carrier Iron Phoenix, Captain Junho of the battleship Hammer of Earth, all of them ready to fight. Good, Hana said. Now let's discuss tactics. The Krythak have numbers on their side. Intelligence suggests 3,000 ships. We have 67. Standard coalition. Doctrine would be to avoid engagement, Captain Soman noted. They'd try to evacuate who they could and retreat. We're not retreating, Hana said firmly. And we're not playing defensive. Coalition ships are built to take hits and run away. Our ships are built to take hits and hit back harder. We're going to charge straight into their formation and tear them apart. The captain stared at her. This was suicide by coalition standards, but by human standards it was just Tuesday. The Krythak will expect us to fight like coalition species, Hana continued. Careful, measured, trying to minimize casualties. They'll try to swarm us, surround us, wear us down. That's how they've won every battle, but they've never fought humans before. She brought up battle plans. We're going to hit them with everything we have. No holding back. No reserves. Full weapons free from the moment we enter the system. They want to swarm? Let them try. Our point defense will shred their fighters. Our armor will absorb their weapons. And our guns will teach them what happens when you attack someone under human protection. Captain Tay smiled grimly. Shock and awe. Exactly, Hana confirmed. Earth taught us to be predators. Today we hunt. The meeting ended, and the captains returned to their ships to brief their crews. Throughout the fleet the mood shifted. Nervousness turned to determination. Fear turned to focus. In the Marine Bay, Yuna addressed her soldiers. The Krythak are big, strong, and scary. But so were saber-toothed tigers. So were cave bears. So were great white sharks. Humans killed all of them. These bugs are about to learn the same lesson. The Marines cheered. In engineering, Jay ran final checks on the weapons systems. Everything showed green. Railguns loaded. Missiles armed. Point defense online. Energy shields at maximum. On the bridge, Bora updated the tactical database with everything known about the Krythak. It wasn't much, but it would have to be enough. Captain Tay sat in his command chair and waited. 24 hours until they reached Luminos Prime. 24 hours until humanity showed the galaxy what Earth's children could do. The fleet raced. Through the darkness and behind them, Earth watched and prayed. But the prayers were not for victory. Humans didn't pray for victory. They prayed that their warriors would come home, because victory was never in doubt. Earth didn't raise losers. Earth raised survivors, and survivors always found a way to win. The distress signal traveled through space at the speed of light, carrying a message of terror and desperation. On the colony world of Luminos Prime, the Valerian people watched the sky fill with enemy ships. Their crystalline bodies glowed with fear as thousands of dark vessels blocked out their sun. The Valerians were peaceful beings. They looked like living glass sculptures, their bodies reflecting light in beautiful patterns. For millions of years they had studied art, music, and philosophy. They had never built weapons. They had never needed to. The galaxy had always been a safe place, or so they thought. Now the Krythak had come. The insectoid monsters appeared 3 days ago, their ships emerging from the darkness like a plague of locusts. The first attack destroyed the orbital stations. The second wave targeted the cities. The Valerians tried to evacuate, but their civilian ships were slow and fragile. The Krethak tore them apart with weapons that burned like acid fire. Elder Sylvanek stood in the planetary communication center, his crystalline hands shaking as he recorded the emergency broadcast. "This is Luminos Prime," he said, his voice chiming like broken glass. "We are under attack by hostile forces. We have no defenses. We are a peaceful civilization. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We have 72 hours, maybe less. After that, there will be nothing left of us." The message was sent to every frequency, every channel, every known civilization in the sector. Then the Valerians waited and hoped. Far away in the capital station of the Galactic Coalition, the message arrived during a council session. The representatives of 20 different species gathered to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchanges. When the distress call played, the chamber fell silent. Ambassador Quillnex, a tall being with 6 arms and purple skin, stood to address the council. "This is tragic," he said, "but we must be realistic. Luminos Prime is 12 days away by our fastest ships. The Krethak will have consumed the planet by then. We cannot save them." Other representatives nodded in agreement. Some expressed sadness. Others calculated the economic loss. But none of them moved to help. They had their own worlds to protect, their own people to think about. One colony world was not worth risking their fleets. The council moved on to the next topic. Luminos Prime was already written off as a loss, but the signal had traveled farther than the Coalition's core worlds. It reached the edge systems, the frontier territories, the newly discovered civilizations. And in one small yellow star system, it found a species that the galaxy had barely noticed. Captain Tay Dahan sat in the command chair of the battlecruiser Eternal Horizon, reviewing supply reports when the communication officer called out. "Sir, we're receiving a distress signal. It's on all emergency channels." Tay was a tall man with sharp eyes and short black hair. He had served in the United Terran Navy for 15 years, rising through the ranks during Earth's rapid expansion into space. "Play it," he ordered. The Valerians' desperate plea filled the bridge. Every officer stopped what they were doing to listen. When it ended, silence hung heavy in the air. "How far?" Tay asked. The navigation officer checked his console. 48 hours at maximum FTL speed, sir." "And the Krethak?" "Unknown hostile species, sir. No records in our database. But based on the transmission, they have superior numbers." Tay stood from his chair and walked to the viewing screen. He could see Earth below, the blue and green world that humanity called home. It was a beautiful planet from space. But Tay knew the truth. Earth was a death trap. Hurricanes that could destroy cities. Earthquakes that split the ground. Predators with teeth like knives. Diseases that killed millions. Gravity so strong that most alien species could barely walk on its surface. Humans had survived all of it. They had learned to fight back against their own world, and they had won. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Tay said. "Request permission to respond to distress call." "Sir," his first officer said carefully, "the Coalition hasn't authorized—" "I don't care what the Coalition authorized," Tay interrupted. "Someone is dying out there. We can reach them in time. Send the message." At Earth Fleet Command, Admiral Hannah Bayek received the request within minutes. She was a stern woman with gray hair and scars from the Mars Rebellion. She had seen combat. She knew what war meant. She also knew what it meant to ignore a cry for help. Hannah reviewed the data quickly. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet was in orbit, fully supplied and ready for deployment. 67 ships, including carriers, destroyers, and assault vessels. Not the largest fleet, but powerful enough. She opened a channel to the Coalition Embassy on Earth. Ambassador Quillnex appeared on the screen, his 6 arms crossed. "Admiral Bayek," he said, "I assume you received the Luminos Prime transmission?" "We did," Hannah replied. "We're preparing to respond." Quillnex's face showed surprise, then concern. "Admiral, with respect, your species has been in space for less than 50 years. You have no experience with interstellar warfare. The Krethak have destroyed civilizations millions of years older than humanity. You would be throwing away lives for nothing." Hannah leaned forward. "Ambassador, how many ships is the Coalition sending?" Quillnex hesitated. "The Council has determined that a rescue is not feasible." "So none. You're sending none. The logistics are impossible." "Then we'll go alone," Hannah said firmly. "Humanity didn't get to where we are by running from impossible odds. We're going to Luminos Prime and we're going to stop those Krythak ships. You can file a formal complaint later. She closed the channel before Quillnex could respond. Within the hour, the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet received deployment orders. Across the fleet, ships powered up their reactors. Marines loaded weapons. Engineers checked systems. Medical bays prepared for casualties. On the eternal horizon, Captain Tay addressed his crew. We're going to help people we've never met, fight enemies we know nothing about in a battle we might not win. But someone sent out a distress call and we're the only ones who answered. That makes it our responsibility. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Humans from every continent, every culture, united by their service. Earth made us strong, he continued. It taught us to survive against impossible odds. Today we show the galaxy what that means. All hands prepare for FTL jump. The fleet moved into formation. 67 ships carrying humanity's hope and fury. The massive vessels accelerated away from Earth, their engines burning bright against the darkness. As they prepared to jump, Tay received one final message. It was from the Coalition Council, officially protesting humanity's unauthorized military action. He deleted it without reading the full text. The 3rd Fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, racing toward Luminos Prime. They had 48 hours to cross the stars. The Valerians had 72 hours to survive. The countdown had begun.